Okay, good afternoon. The Committee on Health and Demography joined with the Committee on Women, Family Relations and Gender Equality and Finance is hereby called to order. Before we start, let me acknowledge the presence of Senators Joel Villanueva and likewise Senator Nancy Binay. Thank you very much, ma'am and sir, for being with us this afternoon. The chair would like to request the committee secretary, Beatrice Cruda, to acknowledge the resource persons present for today.
Good afternoon. We would like to acknowledge the resource persons for this afternoon's hearing. For the bills on autism, these are the following resource persons: Dr. Alexis Reyes, Developmental Pediatrician, Professor, UP College of Medicine, and Director, Center for Autism and Developmental Disorders at St. Luke's Global, Mr. Gabi Atienza. From the DOH, USEC Hermenegildo Valle and Dr. Anthony Calibo, Ms. Mona Magno Veluz, President, Autism Society of the Philippines, Dr. Rochelle Pacifico, Dr. Agnes Falcotello of the Philippine Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics, Ms. Preciosa Dayan Declaro de Lourdes,
development pagdating. Kaya naman po, naniniwala ako na sa pagtutulungan natin, mabibigyan po na natin ng solusyon. Villanueva for ladies first. Ladies first. Senator Binay. Senator Villanueva insists that you go ahead. Okay, Senator Joel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to congratulate this committee headed by our very able and super sipag na chairman, Chairman JV Ejercito, for scheduling this hearing. We are all aware of the utmost importance of these two very important measures that we are about to deliberate. I'd like to thank the presence of Senator Nancy Binay and Senator Risa Ontiveros. Senator Risa and Senator JV are quite controversial after the commission on appointments hearing this a while ago. So we're very happy that they are both here. Of course, I'd like to, before I give my opening statement, Mr. Chair, I'd like to acknowledge my son's Dr. Reyes, who is a very busy and hectic doctor, Mr. Chairman. Just to put on record, you need to allot at least 6 months before you get an appointment with her. To 1 year, at least, I said at least 6 months. 2 years na yun. That's the reason why these measures are very important. That's why I'd like to put on record that I wanted to co-author the measure on autism, Mr. Chairman. And let me start by congratulating everyone for being here. Alam nyo, sa survey na ginawa ng Pulse Asia, health o kalusugan ang lumalabas na most urgent personal concern ng ating mga kababayan. Pumapangalawa lang po dito yung trabaho, pangatlo yung edukasyon. 63% of our population ang naghahangad na maging malusog at makaiwas sa sakit. That survey, to my mind, Mr. Chair, also reveals how our people view health. They view health as the absence of acute illnesses. Basta't walang mabigat na karamdaman, malusog, okay na, Mr. Chair. Subalit may mga sakit po na hindi naman batid ng maraming Pilipino tulad ng mga bleeding disorder gaya ng hemophilia at von Willebrand's disease na namamana o genetic. Pambihira po o rare, talamak o chronic at panghabang buhay na klase ng sakit sa dugo po itong ating binabanggit, Mr. Chair. Dahil nga po mababa ang awareness o halos walang kaalaman sa hemophilia, hindi po ito pinapansin ng ating mga kababayan. Hindi rin po ito prioridad maging ng healthcare system ng ating pamahalaan. Wala ring may tuturing na somehow, Mr. Chair, standard care sa ngayon sa mga pasyenteng may bleeding disorder. Kaya't sa mahabang panahon, napakaliit din ng nakukuhang reimbursement mula sa PhilHealth ng mga pasyenteng may bleeding disorder o hemophilia na tinaguriang royal disease dahil talaga pong napakamahal ng mga gamot para rito. Sa palagay po natin, marami rin mga doktor o health practitioners ang limitado pa rin hanggang sa ngayon ang kanilang kaalaman tungkol dito sa hemophilia at iba pang mga bleeding disorder. Nagpapasalamat ako dahil nandito po, Mr. Chair, si Ms. Andrea Chavez, ang Pangulo, Presidente ng Hemophilia Advocacy Philippines. Naikwento po niya na kinailangan nilang magtungo ng kanyang anak doon sa Hong Kong para doon magpagamot at ma-diagnose na doon niyo po nalaman, ma'am, di ba, na meron sila parehong von Willebrand's disease. The World Hemophilia Federation reported that about 10,000 Filipinos have hemophilia and another 1 million are suffering from von Willebrand's disease and other bleeding disorders. Muli, Mr. Chairman, ang nakakalungkot po, sa kabila ng bilang na yan, nasa 1,200 na pasyente lamang ang rehistrado sa datos ng Philippine Hemophilia Foundation. Tandaan ko po, nung tayo po may programa pa sa telebisyon, yung agenda, finiture ho natin itong hemophilia. At nakapanayan po ng programa noon si Jared Formalejo na may hemophilia B. Naikwento po niya, ang hirap kapag may pamamaga o internal bleeding, lalo na sa kanyang mga buto o joints. Naranasan din ni Jared ang magkaroon ng pagdurugo sa utak kung saan nalagay po siya sa bingit ng kamatayan. Ganon din po si Paul Nico Pobadilla na may hemophilia A severe. Factory worker at construction worker lang po ang kanyang mga magulang. Kaya po talagang kulang na kulang ang kita nila na mag-asawa para matustusan ng gamot ng kanilang anak na si Paul. Nanay naman ng 3 anak na may hemophilia, si Ginang Laida Villalobos. Naikwento po niya, Mr. Chair, kung paano binawian ng buhay ang kanyang anak na si Renz. Hinang-hina po at hirap sa paghinga nang isinugod nila ang kanilang anak na si Renz sa PGH. Pero dahil po sa mahabang pila, hindi rin nabigyan kaagad ng tamang atensyong medical si Renz. Ilang oras lamang pagkatapos binawian po ng buhay si Renz. May mga kasama po tayo ditong mga hematologists at sila po mismo ang magsasabi na aabot sa humigit kumulang 50,000 pesos, if I'm not mistaken, kada buwan ang gastos para lamang sa isang individual na mayroong hemophilia. Kapag hindi po tumigil ang pagdurugo, maaari pang madoble ang gastos kada buwan. Tanong po natin, Mr. Chair, paano naman po kaya ito matutustusan ng isang ordinaryong pamilya dito sa Pilipinas? Sa laki po ng gastos, tinitiis na lang ng ilan sa ating mga kababayan ang pagdurugo. Ilang pong pasyente ang nakausap natin at sinasabi, binebendahan na lang nila, niyeyeluhan na lang nila yung pamamaga kasi wala na nga daw pong pambili silang gamot. Hindi po tayo doktor, Mr. Chair, pero yung gastos, pero yung mga ganyang practice na naririnig natin, alam naman po natin na magpapalala at posibleng magdala pa sa kanila ng pagpaparalisa o pagkakalumpo. Nakakaawa naman po talaga, Mr. Chairman. And I thank you for taking this time, Mr. Chair, to hear this very important measure. Pwede pong ma-manage ang sakit na ito. Pwede pong maging normal ang buhay ng mga kaanak at kababayan natin na may hemophilia o bleeding disorders. Pwede po silang makapag-aral. Pwede po silang makapagtrabaho. And this is the very heart of Senate Bill number 1335. To give the best support for our bleeding disorders community in the Philippines by establishing hemophilia state treatment facilities all over the country, ensuring standard care, and providing adequate funding for hemophilia patients. Tamang pag-aalaga, libreng gamutan, at sapat na impormasyon tungkol sa sakit na ito, magiging normal po ang buhay ng ating mga kababayang may bleeding disorder. Let's give hope to Filipinos with hemophilia and other bleeding disorders by giving them access to care and free and equal treatment that they truly deserve. Maraming salamat and may God bless us all.
Thank you, Senator Joel. Senator Nancy has opening statement, but she would just like to for us to get things started because we have only until 3 o'clock. We have 2 measures that we will be taking up this afternoon. So Senator Nancy would just like her statement be read into the record, inserted into records. Likewise, Senator Laila De Lima has an opening statement for this committee hearing on Autism Care Act. No? So because of time constraints, likewise, we will just insert into the records the opening statement of Senator De Lima. Probably, Senator Tiveros, would you like? We can start already. So this afternoon, we will first tackle the bills on autism. No? Let me recognize first probably in this order. I would like to read so that the resource persons will be ready. For bills on autism, Dr. Alexis Reyes, Sir Gabi Atienza, and then for DOH will be Yusek Valle, Dr. Caribo, or isa na lang po, no? Okay, si Yusek Valle. And then fourth will be Mona Magnovelus of Autism Society of the Philippines. No? So, yung pong first 4, no? Just be ready. Okay? So, ma'am, Dr. Alexis Reyes, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good afternoon. a great opportunity to actually present our comments on the three Senate bills, 1433, 1403, and 589. First of all, I would like to introduce and say that I represent the section of developmental pediatrics of the Philippine General Hospital, and this is under UP Manila. And it is the unit of the hospital which is at the forefront of providing evaluation and intervention for children and adolescents with autism, and not only autism but other developmental disabilities, for free. Our services are for free. This section commends the three bills that were actually presented, but we would look forward to a more comprehensive bill that will unite all, because we feel that this will establish institutional and social mechanisms to ensure the true inclusion and acceptance of persons with autism and other developmental disabilities, so that they may readily access the services that they're entitled to as Filipinos in order to develop to their full potential and enjoy a good quality of life. So if I may move on to the comments on the Senate bills. So the first Senate bill, number 1433 of Senator De Lima, is an act instituting a national comprehensive program for the prevention, early detection, diagnosis, and treatment of persons with autism spectrum disorders and for other purposes. And for the benefit of this particular group, this was already, a similar bill was presented in the Congress about a week ago, and it was also encompassing in so many ways. We recognize that, and we are happy that this particular comprehensive approach to the cause of autism is actually there. But we feel that there are other developmental disabilities that would need a similar care plan. And I think that I would speak for all these disabilities. And although autism is highlighted here because it is the most common at this point in time, it is not the only disability that needs help. So the bill, as we have said in our statement, should be integrated and aligned with existing House bills that relate to educational rights of PWDs as autism and related developmental disorders under the general criteria of education for PWD mandated by Article 9 and 24 of the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, where the Philippines is a signatory in September of 2007 and ratification was done in April of 2008. Now, I would, this is already, we have filed this particular statement, so I will just move on and state that regarding a particular section which we feel is very important, which will resonate later on and repeatedly in the other bills, is the creation of an Autism Council of the Philippines. Now, a review of existing national or international programs should be part of the task, so we need not reinvent the wheel. I think there are so many councils already, and it may be better termed as maybe a developmental disorders council, which covers all rather than autism specifically. There were previous laws and bills which cover other disabilities as a whole, and there may be already councils set up. There need not be a council for each and every condition, disorder, or disability, because right now we're inundated with laws as well and bills that they want us to actually lobby for. And the Down Syndrome Association, for instance, cerebral palsy, I said we will be in Congress for a whole lifetime, so we will not be seeing patients anymore. So I said that maybe we should integrate everything and perhaps review what we already have. So as regards the composition of the council, if there is one, parameters that would define this capability of expertise should be clearly stated. It's not just six years of work or experience. It is really like a lot of clinical research expertise that should be put in place. The non-government appointees, which was specifically mentioned in this bill, shall also determine from the different societies where they come from, like occupational therapy, speech therapy, shall also determine their own criteria for expertise. So that was our statement for that first bill. Now, the second bill on an act establishing a Center for Autism and Other Purposes, if I may also add to the committee that this was already presented some years back, a Philippine Center for Autism by Congressman. Our comments on this particular Senate bill is that we do recognize, the efforts of our leaders to put in place um, certain, I would say, opportunities for centers like these. But there are existing centers already. Creation of a center, which is among others, tasked among others to do diagnostic, therapeutic, and rehabilitation, is already being done at the moment. So the section of developmental pediatrics of the Philippine General Hospital has since evolved its free clinic services from its inception as a multidisciplinary child and adolescent unit in 1989 into the Developmental and Behavioral Studies Unit in 2011, which is a resource and research center involved in the training and intervention of individuals with developmental disabilities. Now, as a background, this unit was given as a donation by the First Gentleman Foundation when the First Gentleman, Jose Miguel Arroyo, represented the Philippines during the United Nations Special Conference for Autism held in New York in 2010. As the Philippines' contribution to the Global Autism Public Health Initiative, or the GAF, this was his contribution, this particular center, which is now being expanded even further at the Philippine Gen. We would like you to visit the center. It is actually, well, I'm very proud of the center. It's very beautiful. Coming, and we are seeing our patients. Actually, our indigent patients have a better center than our patients who pay. So I would like you to visit and challenge me whether this is true or not. Initially envisioned to be a center for autism studies alone, I requested the then First Gentleman to actually expand it to include the entire spectrum of developmental disabilities, because I felt that although we had the expertise for autism, which we still have, we would like it to be expanded to include the other disabilities. So this center is a center for national and international transdisciplinary collaboration in the care of individuals with disabilities. We have held many conferences together with our local leaders and international leaders, both on autism and other disorders. Training is provided for key stakeholders and advocates. We have trained parents, we have trained teachers, we have trained community leaders, we have trained all the therapy leaders as well. Research is undertaken. We have already published a few papers on autism and other developmental disabilities to elevate the quality of practice and state of knowledge on developmental disabilities, and we assure that advocacy is going to take place to ensure the rights and privileges of the disabled. So in that statement that we actually, and that comment that we actually made, we felt that it was a bit redundant to have another center, and we feel that improving on what we have and organizing, integrating our resources will be a better option so that appropriations will actually be well considered. So our last is the comment on the Senate bill of Senator Trillanes 589, an act creating the Philippine Commission on Autism Spectrum Disorders and the Office of Autism Services. And likewise, similarly, this is almost the same as the council that was mentioned earlier. And given the advisory nature of the commission, our comment was that, and its specific focus on autism, perhaps it would be important again to state, number one, the parameters that would define the capability of expertise, particularly if autism is the one mentioned. And the second, they mentioned a specific diagnostician, but they were not very clear on what type of diagnostician are we talking about. As a rule, the medical professional is usually the one who gives the diagnosis. So we would want to include specifically the mention of a developmental pediatrician, a child neurologist, child psychiatrist whose expertise in autism has been well established in both clinical and research work. And finally, Section 6, duties and responsibilities. We believe that a comprehensive nationwide plan for an integrated system of training, treatment, and services is very important, very critical, because we have a lot of children, adults, already within the disability spectrum that need help. There are existing services and programs in the Philippines, and probably the first step is developing a national plan to identify all these programs, classify them according to their expertise and scope and extent of work. Second is a registry of services for the entire country is necessary to lay out the groundwork for future plans, and maybe the last is to see if these services can be integrated in a more comprehensive and efficient network. And I believe that that is really going to be the work of all the bills that have been mentioned. So thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Reyes. Next, Mr. Gabi Atenza, who would like to share his personal experience.
Good afternoon, senators, ladies and gentlemen. I am an artist working for the Center for Autism-Related Disorder. I have been working there since 2003. I don't know. I was considered a gifted artist at an early age. But I had my share of struggles. I had my share of struggles, wondering why am I wanting at a social interaction. For example, at school, I have been teased a lot and bullied a lot for being called, I was called a lot in school abnormal, because the kids there do not consider me, the kids that of my age do not consider me their peer. So this continue on to my teenage years, where I am unable to, where I'm unable to be openly social. You know, I'm not much of an extrovert, but I use my art skills as my outlet. I don't know, I studied through my college years fine arts, and even during that period, I struggled on how I will use my talent in the future. I did not finish my my college course due to my emotional struggles. During that time, no one's heard of Asperger's syndrome yet. And there was a period where I had to undergo psychiatric treatment because I was losing the will to live. And after that, I underwent employment as an ordinary office worker that did not make use of my artistic talent. Then there came a period where I had to be dismissed from my normal work, but through the support of my family and friends, I underwent another psychiatric treatment at a very late age to determine what was the matter with me all these years. During my treatment, I showed them my artwork, and I told my doctors of my dreams of becoming an artist, but I was struggling. What should I become an artist for? So, when it was finally diagnosed that I had Asperger's syndrome at age 41, I underwent some kind of self-realization and self-acceptance and that I should use my talent for the betterment of the less fortunate. At age 41, I realized I am too old to feel sorry for myself, so that I should channel my talent for the good of humanity. And so, during that period, I underwent interview to work at the Center for Autism and Related Disorder, where we also showed them my artwork. And when I was finally employed at 2003, I was openly using my artistic talent for a lot of good causes. I had an illustrated biography bearing my name, and I even had a graphic novel bearing my signature and art skill. I continue to this very day to be using my artwork for, again, for unselfish causes. And as I was waiting for my turn to be called, I made drawings of the senators, and I will give them to you later. Through my artwork, I only see the goodness in people. Through my artwork, I want to overlook political and spiritual barriers. I am now age 58, and I'm using my and I'm using whatever time I have to contribute to society and give something that will outlive me long after I'm gone. Yeah, that is all.
Thank you, Sir Gabby Atienza. It's very inspiring, no, to hear some those words from you, that you never gave up, no? And how I wish that everybody would be like you, to look at the good side of everybody, unlike bashers and haters. Anyway,
Mr. Chairman, before we continue, if I may just commend Mr. Gabi Atienza for your courage and tenacity to be here today, and we want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you, and it's just heartwarming to hear your story, and we want to put on record that we wanted to be like you and make a difference in this country. Thank you for being here.
thank you, and I hope that Mr. Gabby Atienza would be an inspiration to all the others who have who has special needs. Not that you can be normal and you will be accepted by society. Thank you very much, Mr. Gabby Atienza. Now for the government side, I'd like to ask Yusek Valle of the DOH to tell this committee what are being done by your agency to address autism and other disorders that need attention.
Thank you, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to present the position of DOH on these bills, as well as tell you about our programs addressing these disorders. And again, personally, thank you for shedding light and trying to focus expertise and resources on this group of diseases that have been left out in the corner or left in the dark for a long time. Thank you. The Department of Health commends the noble intentions of the authors of the Senate Bills 589, 1403, 1433 in the development of this measure for children with autism spectrum disorders. There's a clear need to address developmental and behavioral disabilities among children. Thus, an overarching and inclusive approach to address these disabilities is important. Early child development in the early years of a child is critical in the formative processes needed to ensure health, survival, and optimum growth and development. Current legislation Republic Act 10410, the Early Years Act, assures that all Filipino infants and children will benefit from early child development interventions. These early child interventions should not be limited to provisions of immunization, measuring of weight and length, provisions of micronutrient supplementation and management of acute child illnesses. However, there must be a holistic approach of assessing the developmental milestones and delays of a child, providing parenting and counseling sessions to empower the parents to sustain developmental milestones, and also assessing developmental delays present in the child. Once an infant or a child manifests developmental delay, the capacities of primary health workers, from barangay health workers up to municipal or city health officer, need enhancement of their capabilities. The Department of Health has recognized the importance of these issues and is in the process of realigning child health and nutrition programs to support developmental disability prevention and rehabilitation, aligning this to the Early Years Act, the Magna Carta for Persons with Disability, the Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Child, and the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The Department of Health suggests focusing on following areas of child development, disability prevention, and rehabilitation to address child developmental disabilities and disorders, including autism spectrum disorders. Those recommendations include: number 1, provision of preventive and promotive child health nutrition services with or without disabilities. Number 2, parenting skills development to child survival and achieving optimum health and development, regardless of children's developmental status. Number 3, development of community-based and primary healthcare-based early screening, identification, and early referral in the first 0 to 3 years of the child, and integrated with service delivery and parenting skills development. Number 4, improvement of health human resource complementation of LGUs to equip the above centers. Number 5, development of governmental regional hospital centers for child development and pediatric rehabilitation and peripheral local government unit based and community-based multidisciplinary child development centers and rehabilitation. Number 6, community-based and primary healthcare-based child rehabilitation programs. And number 7, local government unit social welfare support for patient navigation and family development. The provisions included in the proposed measures are already contained in various policy instruments and laws that address persons with disability. There are existing interagency councils and multi-sectoral collaborations that address the needs of persons and children with disabilities, namely the Council for Welfare of Children, CWC, and the National Council for Disability Affairs, NCDA. For the Department of Health to fully address sensory, mobility, and developmental disabilities in children, the DOH recommends that the current capacities of the Disease Prevention and Control Bureau's Children's Health Development Division be strengthened to fully respond to numerous concerns in relation to child development, disability prevention, and rehabilitation. The Children's Health Development Division, or CHDD, is a technical office of the Department of Health on matters pertaining to child health, nutrition, survival, development, disability prevention, and rehabilitation. Its current budget is shared with another office under the GAA line item of Family Health and Responsible Parenthood Program. The CHDD's current human resource development, composed of an OIC chief, division chief, 1 medical officer, 3 supervising health program officers, and 3 contractual nurse technical support staff, is constrained to address the diverse emerging concerns of children that the DOH and the whole sector need to provide solutions for. The Department of Health budget for 2018 includes 2 technical workshops for the development of training modules for public health workers in early child development, or ECD, and training of trainers amounting to 778,000 pesos. The amount excludes MOOE budgetary support in the creation of 2 technical working groups that will address early child development and child disability prevention and rehabilitation. So, Your Honors, in summary, the position is that of the significant portions of the proposed measures are already embedded in some of the existing programs. And along with what Dr. Reyes has mentioned, we need to maybe revisit these programs or reinforce these programs in some aspects, and finally, to harmonize or create this national comprehensive network to address such disabilities in children. So for 2019, we have a budget of 6.977 million, so 6,977,600 pesos for training, development of training modules on child disability prevention and rehabilitation. Also funding support for TSA, our statistics authority, on conducting a national survey on ECD and child disability, as well as a development of training modules on development of national policy on ECD integrated in child health and nutrition, as well as training of trainers in regional, provincial, and highly urbanized cities teams on implementing early child development programs.
Yusek, I'm sorry, just to clarify, you're talking about 6 million, just 6 million?
Yes, Your Honor,
6
that's
million.
for the development of training modules for child
6
disability.
million, and you want to have a comprehensive, national comprehensive program. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Your Honor, that's fortunately a very small amount for the big project, especially now that we have this big network to deal with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next would be Ms. Mon Magnovelus, and before I give you the floor, ma'am, I'd like to advise Dr. Rochelle Pacifico of Philippine Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics. Isa lang po siguro, no? One of si Dr. Agnes. Sino po? Either of you. Okay, ma'am. And then for Philippine Cerebral Palsy, Preciosa Dayan Declaro de Luria. Hydro Convenor, Irene Antoinette Flores Corsica, or Ana Maria Isabela, one of you na lang po, no, because of time constraints. And then next is your Cristina Sped Center, Zarin Letaba. So yun po, and then we have a few more speakers, but just I would like to remind everybody that due to limited time, please make your statements or your positions as brief as possible. About 3 to 5 minutes would be, if that will be okay. Ms. Mona Magnos-Belus, now, ma'am, we have the floor.
Thank you po, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon po, Honorable Senators. Now, I'd like to introduce first the Autism Society Philippines. I represent a family advocacy organization where we have 13,000 members, and we have 92 chapters nationwide. 4% of our membership are persons with autism themselves. 60% of our membership are parents and family members who take care of persons with autism. We are 29 years old, and we have been engaged with different parts of the government, the National Council on Disability Affairs, LGUs, and of course the executive branch. And we're very happy to be here to support the efforts of the legislation. All three bills have the same noble intention, and we commend all of your efforts. I would not repeat all of the good input that we have already heard, so I will just focus very briefly on some of the unique points that we've seen. We are in favor of the creation of some form of body that will own a national comprehensive autism care plan, and I will explain that a little bit further, why that is. In SB 589, this is pretty much what that is. What it doesn't cover, of course, is there is no person with autism actually involved in the creation of the policy, and we feel this is a very important component. When we are creating laws for persons with disabilities, the person with disability themselves have to be consulted and involved. In the case of the creation of the Center for Autism, I think Doc Alexis captured it. We feel that the UPPGH has been very responsive to the needs of our community. If anything, if we can replicate the UPPGH in other areas, or perhaps transfer the knowledge that is in PGH today into branches of the DOH, I hope that could be fast-tracked. I think in the provincial areas, there is no fellowship on developmental pediatrics that is in place today. We only have 51 developmental pediatricians in the country, 300 speech pathologists, and approximately 800 occupational therapists practicing in specializing in autism. And based on our numbers, we have 1 million Filipinos with autism. There is such a disparity. All of these professionals, very few of them are actually employed in government. So as far as I know, it's NCR and Eastern Visayas that actually have the right resources in place. All others do not. In the case of SB 1433, while it has the same name as a bill that is currently in the House, it is actually very distressing to me because it doesn't use the right language. It refers to autism as a disease. The terms treatment, prevention, cure is actually in the text of the bill, which is not in line with the CRPD approach when it comes to autism. So that is actually also the inclusion of pharmaceutical companies, nurses, caregivers within the council that this bill actually is calling for is not consistent with our experience. Those are not the resources we need to help care for persons with autism. Okay, so going back to the creation of the body that will own the National Autism Care Plan, I think we will be receiving arguments on why we should include all developmental disabilities. If we do this, other disabilities will also be asking for the same thing. I cannot answer why we should not do that, but I only look at the United Nations experience. The United Nations only recognizes 2 conditions and commemorates it with their own special day. So one is AIDS and the other one is autism. The World Autism Awareness Day is on April 2, and this is a United Nations ratified commemoration. And this is because of the world experience that autism is now one of the biggest growing conditions that we are not prepared to deal with as a society. According to the United Nations, depending on the population, sa Pilipinas wala pa po tayong prevalence study, 1 to 2% of the population are on the spectrum, many of whom are not diagnosed. Kasi konti lang nga po yung mga diagnosticians natin. And also, I actually am concerned by this perception that autism is limited to children. If I refer back to the statement from our Honorable Yusek, most of their plans are for children. Prevention of disabilities in children. But autism is a lifetime condition, and there are no supports under DOH once the child exceeds the age of 18. I believe the Autism Center for DOH is the National Children's Hospital. And if you are over 18, you cannot get the services there. Okay, so overall, what we want to see is a UNCRPD consistent bill. We want autism to be presented as a spectrum. Hindi lang po yung high functioning like Gabby. Meron po mga taong may autismo na kailangan ng tulong their entire life. Pag namatay po yung magulang nila, magiging taong grasa na lang sila dahil wala po silang pupuntahan. They are too old to go into the DSWD orphanages, and they don't have anywhere to go. We also want full participation of persons with autism in the mainstream. Kaya po we want this comprehensive national autism care plan. Kahit na sino pa po ang gagawa niyan or magmo-monitor niyan, kailangan po ng protection, participation, and development of persons with autism. Just to give you highlights po of our concerns as a community, ang mga taong may autismo po hindi pwedeng makakuha ng life insurance or health insurance because of autism. So hindi po tapos kadalasan po ang mga anak namin kapag 18 na at may STEAM na pagkakamalan po kaming addict, pagkakamalan po kaming drug user. If persons with autism are witnesses to a crime or accused of committing a crime, the justice system does not know how to handle our children. Adults with autism who have, I would say, aggressive or aberrant behavior, who are often not, their families don't know how to care for them, don't have anywhere to go. So ang nangyayari po, either nabubugbog nila yung family nila or nililigaw sila ng family nila. And there's no, the National Mental Health Institute has some persons with autism in their roster, but there is no habilitation for them there. Only medication and so all of that. Persons with autism who are in employment, who are able to function, 50% of them are experience depression, especially as they age. And marami pa po tayong hindi alam tungkol sa population ng autism dahil walang nag-aaral. And we don't have a lot of them coming to the fore, telling us about their health problems, telling us about their social experience, para po, for us to create the right policies and procedures. So in summary, I would like the law and the government in general not to focus on service delivery alone, although this is important. We need to make sure that policies and protocols are in place, not just in DepEd, not just in DOH, but also in DOJ, DOF, all of the people who are the PNP, the DILG, lahat po na nagbibigay ng serbisyo sa mamamayan. Dapat po ma-mainstream yung pangangailangan namin doon sa ginagawa na nila. This autism is not just a medical issue, it is not just an education issue. It is an issue that affects all parts of the society. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Next will be for Philippine Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics, Dr. Rochelle Pacifico.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honors. I represent the Philippine Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics, of course, with Dr. Alexis Reyes here and Dr. Agnes Falcotello. I just want to give a little bit of a background of what the society is all about. Actually, it is a professional organization that is composed of certified pediatricians. So we're already pediatricians, have undergone additional training in development and behavioral pediatrics, no? It doesn't only encompass children, it goes beyond that, even adolescents and even adults, no? With autism continue to be our patients because of their need, no? To be seen by a medical specialist. So we are, as Dr. Alexis Reyes have already mentioned, we are in the forefront of diagnosis, no, evaluation, care, no, and not only of the child but the families as well. When we received, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here, and when we received the bills, we immediately noticed the similarity of purpose and content, and we commend all of those who have authored the bill so far. And in such, I'd just like to add or give some addition to the ones that have already been mentioned by those who have spoken previous to me. Because of the similarity of purpose and content, the society actually suggests to consolidate all three. It would be better to do that. But because we also realize that the bill of Senator De Lima, Senate Bill number 1433, is most comprehensive, we just would want to refer to this for the meantime. So with regard Senate Bill 1433, with regards Section 1, which has something to do with the title, well, as mentioned by Dr. Alexis Reyes, we want to suggest that it be broadened. Maybe this will also help in, maximizing budget and avoiding redundancy, resources, manpower. And we propose to revise the title to autism, to include autism and related developmental disorders. And by related developmental disorders, we mean to include the following conditions, no? Language disorders, which basically autism can be considered part of social pragmatic communication disorders, unspecified communication disorders, Rett syndrome, learning disorders, intellectual disorders, global developmental delay, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Also because these disorders are comorbids of autism spectrum disorder. No, yeah, most of them are. So henceforth, we propose that all reference to autism shall read autism and related disorders. With regard section 3 of the said bill, we recommend that the definition for autism refer to the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 5, because this is what is currently being used by most sectors. And then in terms of section 3, where a diagnosis, arriving at a diagnosis is proposed, we suggest that you include neurodevelopmental/developmental and behavioral assessment, which usually comprises most of the first line evaluation for these kids or these individuals. And then for section 4, and I'm glad Dr. Cochonco is here, I just like to add the term epigenetic factors, which recognizes the transactional involvement of genes and how the environment can actually modify the way our genes behave. And then you always encounter the term rehabilitation in the bills that have been proposed. And actually, since autism is something that is present often at birth, the skills haven't evolved yet. And so instead of rehabilitation, it would be best to use the word habilitation or habilitative intervention instead of rehabilitative. And then for section 6, again, just being consistent with our suggestion to include other related conditions, we suggest to change the name of the council into Autism Council into the National Council for Autism and Related Disorders. Maybe that would be best. In terms of section 6, where coordination with schools in the formulation of programs for children and individuals with autism was proposed, we suggest also the formulation of specific and well-crafted inclusion programs, because right now there is the existence of SPED, but right now we're moving towards inclusive education, but it appears to me, and integration to the mainstream, but it appears to us that there's not a lot of work that has been done in trying to craft a good inclusive program for them. And then for section 7, which speaks about the composition of the National Council, we would like to clarify the inclusion of duly accredited vaccines manufacturers and distributors in the council. We just fear that this might contradict the protection against conflicts of interest amongst the stakeholders. Yeah, and more research should be geared towards this. And then in section 7, still again, in the composition of the council, we suggest that in lieu of nurses, and I think, Dr. Ma'am Mona has already mentioned this, in lieu of nurses, I believe occupational therapists and speech and language pathologists would be better represented in the council, as they are more involved in the care of these children or individuals. And we suggest also representation from the Philippine Hospital Association, because it's always the public, government agencies that are involved and not of the private sector. We also, in line with that also, we strongly recommend one representative specifically from the Philippine Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics to be part of the council. And then in section 8, which deals with the meetings, in the order of meetings, we suggest quarterly meetings instead of monthly, because it can be very tedious to go on. Yeah. And then some additional comments. May we suggest to update the current prevalence of autism spectrum to be 1 in 68? Actually, this is based on the U.S. Centers for Disease Control 2014 report. Yeah, as of 2014. As to our knowledge, we do not have any existing established prevalence rate in the Philippines. No? Wala pong nagagawang
Mr.
study. And then,
Gusto ko naman tanong, bakit nga ho wala? I guess, DOH, hindi ba napapasok sa PSA yan? Or How come there's no effort to do?
Wala pa po. We have it on our 2018 ba to? 2019 proposal for the PSA to do the survey on the prevalence of autism spectrum disorders.
So ngayon lang po tayo magkakaroon ng prayer survey, so we don't have an idea. Exact.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, that's true.
Okay, ma'am, please continue. Please, if we may, please wrap up na po. May po.
For the Senate bills number 589 and number 1403, again, the consolidation of these bills, and actually we agree with the Senate bill number 589 section 5, which includes the Commission of Higher Education in the composition of council members, as already mentioned by Ma'am Mona, that also highly functional individuals with autism are capable of achieving higher education. Thank you very much. That will be all.
Thank you. Next, for Philippine Cerebral Palsy, Preciosa de Ampeglaro de Luria. And then after her will be from IDRO Convenor. Then, Zarin Letaba of SPED Center.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to be here at this landmark hearing. The Senate bills being proposed, as discussed by Dr. Reyes, the USEC from DOH, Ms. Mona, when we were reviewing it, we pretty much agree with the initial position in that inclusive is the name of the game, which is why cerebral palsy, not being autism, is represented here. Now, as far as interventions are concerned, we feel that the laws have already been in place. No, in 1983, even before the UNCRPD, we already had the accessibility law. And in 1992, our Magna Carta for PWDs. And then that was after that we signed the CRPD and ratified it the year after. The creation of the PIDAW in cities and municipalities. These measures are already in place, and then just recently is the expanded VAT privileges for PWDs. And I'm thinking ZMORPH under DOH should, it's still waiting to be delivered in its entire package. Now, as far as IDRO is concerned, we feel that these laws just need to be edified. We need a sort of watchdog to make sure that these laws are enforced, and the needs for the persons with disability, not just the young person with disability, but the going into adulthood. If I may turn the mic to my other cohorts here, because they will have the other concerns of IDRO. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Have sige sa IDRO po.
Yes, good afternoon.
Scorsiga.
Yeah, my name is Irene. I'm a parent of an 8-year-old boy with autism. When IDRO was convened last year, we all decided na hindi kami magpo-focus sa isang disability lang. So, kasi ang IDRO believes na kahit na iba-iba yung interventions dun sa mga disabilities na to, naniniwala kami na may isang approach na pwede mag-guarantee nung long-term na protection of the rights and welfare of people with disabilities. And that is the rights-based approach to the advocacy. So, I guess siguro ang tanong talaga ng lahat, especially siguro sa mga magulang na katulad ko, what's in store for children or anak ko or people with disability. And nakakalungkot kasi hindi natin siya masasagot, di ba, ngayon. Parang pwede lang, hindi natin masasagot kasi hindi natin alam kung ano ang current na state ng Filipino PWD. No? So, the last official survey na meron tayo ay 2010. No? We were not included. The sector was not included in the 2015 census. No? So, At ito yung naniniwala kami na kaya simula last year, we have been working closely with the Office of Senator Laila de Lima para mag-push ng isang national database, yung consolidated. Kasi there have been various efforts from the private sector, from the government, na magkaroon ng isang comprehensive prevalence study. Kaya lang hindi siya consolidated, so kalat-kalat. No, meron pang, may nakita kaming, actually mula dun sa listahanan, yung sa 4Ps, no, meron ka makukuha doon eh. So, at makikita mo talaga na ang dami sa kanila. Out of the 4 million na household beneficiaries na na-survey, may mga around 400,000 na households na talagang bawat isang household may disability. Meron silang member na may disability. So, ito rin yung kung bakit nagfo-focus din ng IDRO at gusto rin naming i-push yung pag-aaral tungkol sa poverty at yung disability. No? Kasi talagang magnified, nadodoble yung discrimination, yung prejudice na nararamdaman ng isang taong may disability kapag siya ay mahirap. No? Kasi, syempre yung dent doon sa income nung napaka-meager na nga ng income, diba? Tapos kailangan mo pa, yung interventions na kailangan niya napakamahal. Tapos yung kailangan magtrabaho nung caregiver, diba? Pero hindi magagawa. So, kaya yung IDRO ay very, very keen on supporting yung mga bills which are being discussed today, primarily because of yung mga long-term na provisions dun sa, yung mga provisions doon na nag-ensure nung long-term na pag-address dun sa needs ng mga people with disabilities. We are very keen on pushing for a rights-based approach to the advocacy, to PWD advocacy, as opposed to yung dalawang mas popular na approach, yung charity-based na syempre nakabatay lang dun sa awa mo, dun sa pakiramdam mo, o kaya yung tinatawag nilang na mas acceptable, yung needs-based approach na ang sinasabi nila sa needs-based ay dahil hanggang community lang siya, no, mas pinoprovide siya ng mga private sector, ng mga NGOs, hanggang community siya, so nalilimit din niya yung participation ng tao sa government, no? Kasi hanggang nasa community lang yung intervention. So, siguro bilang pagsasara, if we start seeing, we should start looking at the sector or people with disability, siguro from a rights-based perspective. So kung ganon, we should stop looking at them we should stop looking at them bilang mga dependents dun sa desisyon ng mga tao. We should stop looking at them as charity cases, no? Instead, kilalanin sila ng state, no, ng mga tao bilang rights holder. Ayun. Tapos bilang gusto rin namin kilalanin syempre yung efforts ng private sector dun sa, kasi ito yung proof na yung services na para sa PWD ay posible, no? Kasi napaka epektibo, napakalawak ng nagagawa ng private sector for the PWD sector. At yung ginagawa nilang ito, patunay lang to na posible yung pagtulong, yung intervention. Tapos, kailangan lang talaga ng government intervention para ma-consolidate itong efforts ng private sector. So, kailangan talaga ng tulungan. So, ayun, gusto rin namin ulitin yung i-take yung opportunity na to na magpasalamat for giving us the chance, for giving IDRO the chance. Kasi last year lang kami nagsimula. No? So, marami pa kaming dadaanan. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Due to time constraints, so we will go back, we will hear everybody, pero if it's, I beg the indulgence with others, but I'll just go first to dun sa isang bill, no? For a while, I'll just let probably 3 or 4, then come back again sa ano. Kasi because the authors are here already, so we'll just take advantage of the time. But we'll do our best to make everybody speak. So we'll just suspend temporarily the hearing on autism. Magmerienda muna kayo. Anyway, so we'll go first to Miss Andrea Chavez, no, to talk about bills on bleeding disorders quickly. So yung mga nasa autism bills, magmerienda muna. Break muna tayo.
Good afternoon, honorable senators. So I'll talk as a person with a bleeding disorder. I'll just leave it to the doctors to talk about the medical aspect. So my name is Andrea Chavez. I'm the president of Hemophilia Advocates Philippines. As mentioned earlier, hemophilia is a rare inherited bleeding disorder, and there are around 10,000 Filipinos with hemophilia. I have a related bleeding disorder called von Willebrand disease. I inherited it from my mother, and sadly, I passed it on to my daughter, Star. So there are about 1 million persons with von Willebrand disease, estimated. Yeah, so each person represents a story of suffering due to lack of diagnostic facilities and treatment here in the Philippines. When I was 17, my mother bled to death in a government hospital while undergoing a biopsy operation. She knew she was a bleeder, but the doctors back in the 1980s did not believe her because they said women cannot be bleeders. Hemophilia has always been associated with males. Back in the 80s, very little was known of other types of bleeding disorders. So when my youngest daughter, Star, was born, she showed symptoms of bleeding. But doctors, again, refused to consider the possibility that she could have a bleeding disorder because, again, they said women and girls cannot have bleeding disorders. Out of frustration, I brought Star to Hong Kong, where we were both diagnosed with von Willebrand disease. I eventually got involved in the local hemophilia community, and I realized that my family is not alone in this journey after all. So there's Manang Rita from Tanhay, Negros Oriental, who had 4 sons who died one after the other of bleeding. There's my friend Rex, who died of gastrointestinal bleed because we had no medicines at that time, and his body could no longer take blood products. There's also my friend Marcelino from Bohol, who died last year of brain bleed while on the way to Bohol on the way to Cebu to seek treatment. And there was Jason, who became depressed because of his constant bleeds. And he just gave up in taking care of himself. He died last year of gastrointestinal bleed. Also last year, one of our young members named Joven from our Laguna chapter died at the emergency room of a government hospital in Manila. Every year, 5 or 6 at least members of our small community die because of lack of access to treatment. But hundreds of thousands of us suffer in silence because of the debilitating effects of having a bleeding disorders. I have here some of people with hemophilia. Treatment for hemophilia and related bleeding disorders like von Willebrand disease are very expensive. A single bleed into joints could cost between 5,000 for babies to 50,000 a single bleed. Serious bleeds like gastrointestinal bleeds and brain bleeds could cost hundreds of thousands to even million. And honorable senators, the Bleeding Disorders Standard of Care Act of 2017 that is authored by Honorable Senator Joel Villanueva, Nancy Binay, and Senator J.V. Ejercito is the bright light at the end of the dark tunnel that we are treading right now. So we ask you, dear senators, please pass this Bleeding Disorders Standard of Care bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Andrea Chavez. Next, the chair would like to recognize now Dr. Marilu Abiera, Vice President of the Philippine Society for Hematology and Blood Transfusion. And then after her, Dr. Feder Hernandez. And then probably we'll go back to the H again for what regarding what the agency is doing about these conditions. Okay, ma'am, you have the floor, Dr. Abiera.
Good afternoon. First of all, let me thank you, honorable senators, for this opportunity for us to participate in this hearing. No, let me just tell you that I'm wearing several hats today. I'm the Vice President of the Philippine Hematology and Blood Transfusion. I'm also a board member of the Philippine Pediatric Society of Pediatric Hematology. I'm also the Administrator Officer and Assistant Chief of the Cancer and Hematology Center of the Philippine Children's Medical Center. Now, regarding the society's position for this bill, we fully support the passing of this bill, no, the two bills. For one, we know Senator Villanueva had made mention that it is a rare disease. It's also been mentioned by Andrea, but I don't think it is a rare disease. No, because the incidence is placed at 1 per 10,000 live births, meaning to say, bawat isang taon may ipinanganganak na 10,000. That is the incidence. What about the prevalence? So it continues to increase, especially if it is not equaled by deaths. Okay? So we don't know really the magnitude and the extent of how many are those are suffering from bleeding disorders. Simply because hemophilia presents in several, in severity. We have mild, moderate, and severe. No? It is the moderate and severe diseases that we often see and diagnose. What about those who are mild? They used, I had one patient, medical student na saka pa lang na diagnose na may mild hemophilia pala siya as an incidental finding. So, number 2 is, we did not meet our millennium goal for maternal mortality. And we found out that number 2 cause is postpartum hemorrhage. So we do not know how much of this is due to a primary bleeding disorder. Okay? So, hemophilia care in our society, in our country is really suboptimal and inadequate. For one reason, we are a developing country, and therefore the healthcare is focused on budget allocation concentrated to basic health priorities like nutrition, immunizations, sanitation. No? And nale-left out yung mga other bleeding disorders. The bleeding disorder, sabi natin, is inherited. Ito nga yung pangit about inherited because one family can have 2 or more affected children. And the burden of the disease of hemophilia is so great. No? I have here a data from the Philippine Children's Medical Center. We had 23 patients, no, who were admitted January to June because of bleeding. A patient who bled into the brain can actually shell out on the average of 650,000 pesos, or a range of 220,000 to 1.2 million. Just one patient lang po yan. Eh kung 3, 4 all at the same time. So it eats up a lot of budget and resources of the hospital. As simple yung sinasabi ni joint bleed, no, na sinasabing from 5,000, average lang po yung 57,000. It can range between 20 to 65,000. Actual, po ito, nakalagay po ito sa position paper namin, you can review it. The other thing is, I also look into how much of the treatment, which is actually, ang treatment po is factor concentrate replacement. No? How much of this is attributed to factor concentrates? I found out that intracranial the proportion of those who would really need replacement is between 30 to 50,000. So overall, ang cost po is due to factor concentrate, no? Between 30 to 50,000. And we're talking about thousands of pesos here. So sa ibang country po kasi, no, ang maganda nun is because the government is supporting them, the burden of this disease is actually somehow decreased. Ano po ba mga burden of diseases? One is financial na nga. The other 2 is physical. This physical disability, because these patients, when not treated appropriately, can have joint deformities. They can have physically disabled. As you can see, some of our patients here, no, they have mobility problem already. No? Number 2 is emotional. Yun yung hindi nakikita. madalas may mga pamilyang nagkakahiwalay kasi yung mga lalaki, sinisisi yung asawa nila bakit nagkaroon ng hemophilia ang anak nila. It's because females are carriers. Eh, hindi naman po kasalanan ng mga nanay, no? And what happens to our patients? They have low self-esteem, they don't go to school, no? They have that blame culture, and mababa yung self-esteem nila to the point na sana kung they can be given appropriate, optimal treatment, then they can live a full life with good quality of life and probably can be productive Filipino citizen. Now, in terms of the pediatric hematologists po, konti lang po kami dito sa Pilipinas. There are only about 80 pediatric hematologists. So kung i-add po natin yung adult, there are only less than 150. And 60% po nito nasa national capital region or highly urbanized region. Wala po kaming hematologist sa ARM at doon sa kaduluduluhan po ng iba pang regions. No? So you can just imagine na naka-scatter po kasi ang mga hemophilia. So ano po ang isang namin dito as a society? I think we have to empower and train, no, increase awareness of the bleeding disorder among primary physicians and other allied healthcare providers. They can be trained to identify a child or person with probable bleeding disorder. And probably, we should have a efficient referral system from the primary level to the tertiary level, no? So, what is the role? Number 2 is, nakalagay po kasi sa bill, isa lang comment ko, free of charge for indigents. Paano naman po yung mga nasa middle class? No? The disease, lalo na po kung mga life-threatening bleed, that can be catastrophic and it can push the family into medical poverty. So, sana po, pagdating po nung, ma-enhance yung bill to include also provisions for those who are also, ibig ko sabihin lahat na po ng strata ng economic, ng may hemophilia patients, no? And, the other thing is, again, what is the role of the society? 1, we can be an advocate. Number 2, we can be we can provide the resource person needed for increasing awareness. And number 2, we can work well with the DOH and other stakeholders for the drafting of standards of care for the hemophilia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Biera. Next, Dr. Fred Hernandez, then we go already to DOH, and then I'll go back to, meron pa pala. Sorry, haplos ng pagmamahal. Yes, Dr. Florida Hernandez.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Florida Hernandez. I'm a pediatric hematologist as well. And I am representing the Philippine Society of Pediatric Hematology because our president is out of town as of the moment. And I am also a sister of 3 males with hemophilia. I have uncles with hemophilia, and I have nephew with hemophilia. And in terms of, we thank you, senators, honorable senators, for thinking of the bleeding disorders and crafting a bill for bleeding disorders. Although I must say that there are also, just like the autism disorders, there are also some laws that can protect and provide adequate care for people with hemophilia. And one of that is the Universal Health Care Act, for which PhilHealth is one of the implementing arms. And the Philippine Society of Hematology and Blood Transfusion, the Philippine Society of Pediatric Hematology, and the Hemophilia Association of the Philippines, HAPLOS Foundation, have jointly crafted a proposal to the Philippine Health Insurance Company to improve the outpatient package for people with hemophilia, because as of now, there's none. The only provision PhilHealth gives to people with hemophilia is blood transfusion using blood component therapy. But the standard of care for people with hemophilia now is the use of clotting factor concentrates. They receive clotting factor concentrates or factor replacement every time they bleed. And so, for people who are receiving blood components, just like my brother has hemophilia, my brothers have hemophilia B. And there's only 176 out of 103 million population with hemophilia B. And so by that alone, we consider it rare. There is an issue about the prevalence of the disease, as Dr. Abiera has mentioned, but with significant efforts from the Hemophilia Association of the Philippines, as of today, we only have like less than 1,500 people with hemophilia registered with the national member organization of the World Federation of Hemophilia. So if we are to compute for the prevalence or incidence of the disease, 1,500 against 103 million population, that's like 1 for every 70,000 population, and by that alone, we could consider hemophilia a rare disease. And there is a Rare Disease Act. We actually have approached the National Institute of Health to include hemophilia in the rare disease lists, so that that law alone will provide comprehensive care and protection for people with hemophilia. But we are having a hard time, and I hope the Senate, you good senators, can help us include hemophilia in the rare disease lists so that they will be protected and they will be provided with a comprehensive care, including developing a national registry for people with hemophilia. And we will also be providing you with the proposal we have submitted to PhilHealth, because there's now a paradigm shift in the treatment of people with hemophilia. We do not like them admitted in the hospital. It is a lifelong illness. So it destroys the dynamics of the family. And my brother alone, because I said there's no factor IX concentrate available in the Philippines, I lost my brother because of transfusion transmissible infection. He developed hepatitis C and B. He developed cirrhosis and eventually renal failure, and he succumbed to renal failure. And so I would say that as of now, there's no national tender for clotting factor concentrates, but it's locally available, factor VIII concentrate. And the World Federation of Hemophilia medical team has visited the Philippines actually and has offered the Department of Health to help purchase and negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies to lower down the cost of factor concentrate. As of today, we're actually buying each unit of factor VIII at 20 pesos per unit. But in other countries, actually, if it were through government, they can purchase the factor concentrate at half the price, at 10 pesos per unit. So I think a national policy in terms of a national tender should be put in place. And we also lobby that the Senate, you good senators, will help us include hemophilia in the disease list of rare diseases, and help us lobby with the Philippine Health Insurance Company that they improve reimbursements for people with hemophilia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your suggestions are, and everything they said will be noted, no? And as well as the other resource persons, and your recommendations will all be noted by this committee.
Thank you,
Okay. Mr. Last but not
Mr. Chair, siguro bago lang tayo lumipat, bakit hindi mo available yung isang, you mentioned one medicine not available?
I have spoken with the two companies that are distributing products in the Philippines, but the law of supply and demand, there are only like 176 people with hemophilia B, and it's not profitable for them to actually be bringing factor IX concentrate. So people with hemophilia are given fresh frozen plasma or cryosupernate, and they are at very high risk of developing transfusion transmissible infections.
Senator, kasi hemophilia, 80% of hemophilia are factor VIII deficiency. And only about 15% of the total hemophilia is B.
Okay, thank you, doctors. For applause, Mr. Rey Sarmienta.
I'd just like to thank the senators who sponsored the two bills, and we'd like to thank you. And Haplos, by the way, is 25 years this month. In fact, last March 19, we celebrate this week our 25th year of existence, and many of us here have been there for some time. I myself is a parent of a person with hemophilia. My son is at the back, who is active in Haplos. Haplos stands for Hemophilia Association of the Philippines for Love and Service, and therefore our mission is to love and serve. Just very quickly, Haplos has been here for 25 years, and we are the National Member Association of the World Federation of Hemophilia. The World Federation of Hemophilia is willing and in fact offered help in the Department of Health in anything that has to do with giving benefits to persons with hemophilia and other bleeding disorders. It's not limited
to hemophilia alone. The advocacy of the World Federation covers all bleeding disorders, except that it has some emphasis in hemophilia because 55 years ago or so, the person who put up that federation had hemophilia. So anyway, we support the efforts of the Senate, the good senators, for the passing of these two bills, and we hope that our role here is to contribute anything and everything that we could with the help of the World Federation so that you'll be able to craft the best possible law for the benefit of all bleeding disorders persons here. And actually, there are only two things that we'd like to request in addition to what in fact, to confirm what Dr. Hernandez has already stated, that to help us craft a more probably easier way of giving benefits is through the universal health care, and therefore there is already a proposed rate, and it is in the actuary department. And we are giving you this set of documents to help the committee in your deliberations. And the second is the inclusion of hemophilia and other rare bleeding disorders. It's not only hemophilia. At least two types of von Willebrand are rare. In fact, rarer than hemophilia itself. So therefore, those are the two things that we'd like to ask the committee, the good senators, to support this action for the persons with hemophilia and other bleeding disorders. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ray Sarmenta. Before we go to the DOH, I'd like to ask Dr. Eva Marie Cotionco de la Paz, Vice Chancellor for Research and Executive Director, National Institutes of Health, UP Manila. All the experts are here. Probably you can talk about both autism and hemophilia. Okay,
Sir, thank you, Your Honor, for giving me the opportunity to talk. Actually,
but rest assured that in this committee, we trust you. We trust the expertise of you, PGH, of course, where all the experts are, specialists. Wala naman dito ang ano eh. Wala naman dito ang pau, ang investment. Sige po.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for
Mr.
the
Chairman, may hugot kayo, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the trust and confidence. I just wanted to give a statement regarding the statement earlier by Doctora. She mentioned about the Rare Disease Act, which was passed last March 2016. And we have had a chance to speak together with their group, and we had to explain that the Rare Disease Bill is a twin legislation for the Newborn Screening Act of 2004. And that's why if you look at the law, it actually speaks a lot about the newborn screening program and the conditions that would pick up through that program. But having said that, of course, it has already come to our attention, and we definitely sympathize with all the others, with all the other disorders that may come in as rare. And so during the implementing group, I co-chair the technical working group for the development of the IRR together with the DOH. The DOH chairs that committee, and I'd like to ask Dr. Calibo to briefly expound on what the Department of Health has in store for all the other diseases that are not covered at the present time by the Rare Disease Act. Dr. Calibo.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. With the indulgence of Yusek Valia, the Rare Disease Technical Working Group has actually convened, and we have already finalized the list of diseases that will be included, being rare disease in the Philippines. And I think there's a clarification that we're not excluding conditions like hemophilia in that list, no? But the priority is for rare diseases that are of metabolic to be prioritized first, and then for those that are non-metabolic, that will be the group wherein the others, no? Because resources and of course the diseases being captured right now will be coming from the expanded newborn screening. And what we offered to the group for hemophilia is that a a national policy, a clinical practice guideline, and of course, development of some CPGs and model of operations is being in the way. In fact, we've been meeting with the group of Haplos Foundation since 2016, and so far we're into the process of creating a technical working group and addressing already the public health aspects of what their organization is pushing for DOH to address. Unlike before, that the program for hemophilia was anchored on the National Voluntary Blood Service Program with the Philippine Blood Center. But right now, it's more on linking it with public health interventions, making sure that at the barangay and community level, screening for hemophilia can actually take place. And of course, linking this with the referral centers, especially with the DOH tertiary hospitals. And of course, with PhilHealth, we're also developing a special benefit package to address the outpatient and inpatient components of that package. In fact, Yusek Valley will be expounding further on what may be a good refinement of the proposed measure beyond bleeding disorders. Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you, Dr. Caribo. Actually, that's good timing because we just finished our Universal Healthcare Program hearings, and they will